So each week we're going to learn about a specific individual who's a leader. And our first week of school, we learned about Albert Einstein with a quote just telling us about with every challenge, there are also opportunities. So after we're done learning about that person for the week, I'm just kind of listening to their quote. We dig a little deeper to learn a little bit more about them. So I'm going to be using a Scholastic reader that's intended for a reading level 6, but for an audience of 3rd through 5th graders. And I'm going to be reading a little bit from this book each day throughout the week, and I'll be posting it on YouTube so that you can watch it and learn a little bit more on your own about Albert Einstein. So I'm going to start with the introduction today and chapter 1. When I was 26 years old, I changed our ideas about the universe. People later called it my miracle year because while working as a clerk in a government patent office, I came up with new equations and formulas that would eventually lead to all sorts of inventions, from cell phones to space travel. They included the theory of relativity and my famous equation E equals mc squared. So you can say that I was a success, perhaps even the most famous scientist of all time. As proof, my name has become another word for genius. But I didn't start out that way. In fact, when I was a little boy, my teachers didn't think that I would amount to very much. That's because I wasn't like everyone else. Okay, I was strange. I didn't enjoy playing games with other students. And I thought class was a total bore, which is why my teachers didn't appreciate me. And instead, I preferred to spend my time alone, thinking. Sure, I loved my sister Maya and my parents, and I found a big and exciting world right inside my own head. Although my area of science was physics, the study of matter and energy, including how objects behave in motion, my mind was my best laboratory. I was actually such a klutz in real labs that I once caused an explosion. That's because I always had a huge imagination. I pictured the most amazing things, such as what it would be like to travel on a beam of light. And I asked big questions like how the universe worked. And then I spent years patiently looking at patterns and working on complicated math problems to find the answers. It wasn't easy, and I was wrong many times before I was right, but I was never afraid to make mistakes. You'll always make mistakes when you try something new. It's just part of the process. Fueled by my legendary curiosity, my discoveries in science led to lots of practical inventions, such as smoke alarms and automatic doors. They also led to faraway places, like the origin of the universe and expanding galaxies. And it all started in my mind. Imagination is more important than knowledge, I once said. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. I am Albert Einstein. Chapter 1, Not Your Average Kid. Albert Einstein's brain might not have been bigger than anyone else's, but his head sure was. Born on March 14, 1879, in the small German town of Ulm, the baby genius's head seemed too big for his body. His parents, Herman and Pauline, worried that their son might be unusual. Albert certainly turned out to be different, but not in a way his parents ever imagined. When Albert turned 1, the Einsteins moved to the larger city of Munich, where Albert continued to worry his parents. He didn't babble or say little words like the other babies. Herman and Pauline took him to see many doctors, but no one could find anything wrong with him. Albert apparently didn't speak a word until his birth of his sister, Maja. The story goes that his parents told him that they were bringing home a new toy. When he first saw his sister, the previously silent Albert blurted out, "Where are the wheels?" Even after Albert began to speak, his way of talking was strange. He would whisper sentences a few times to himself, as if he were rehearsing what he wanted to say, before he would speak it out loud. His slow way of speaking made people think that he wasn't smart. Albert wasn't too concerned about the way he talked. An extremely shy and quiet child, he preferred to play by himself anyway. The housekeeper gave him the nickname Father Bore because he hardly made a peep all day. When he did express himself as a small child, it was often with anger. Albert, who grew up to be one of the most peace-loving men of all time, had a very bad temper as a kid. He was especially prone to throwing things at Maja. Eventually, the siblings became best friends. Albert's family loved him, his quirks and all. Herman, a businessman, owned a gas and electrical supply company with his brother Jacob, who was an engineer and an inventor. It was a great partnership since Herman could handle the commercial side of the business, while Jacob could work on patents for electric meters, new lamps, circuit breakers, and other things. Pauline, who grew up in a wealthy family, brought the culture to the Einstein clan. She played piano very well. Hoping to pass along her love of music to her son, she gave him a violin when he was about 6. Albert fought his mandatory lessons at first. He didn't like people telling him what to do. Soon enough, though, the violin became a major source of joy, especially when he played duets with his mother on the piano, or any pieces by his favorite composer, Mozart. The violin was a lifelong pleasure for Albert, and it had something that he could do for hours of the day and night to clear his mind when trying to work out a difficult problem. It says, a flash of genius, Albert was born the same year that Thomas Edison introduced the first electric light. Super cool. The gift his father gave him when he was 5 years old was much more of an immediate hit. Albert, who had been sick while recovering in bed, so his dad wanted to get him something to cheer him up. He pulled a shiny new compass out of his pocket. Albert stared at the little mechanism with a needle that always pointed north, no matter how it turned. Why? He was desperate to know how it worked. Herman explained that Earth is like a big magnet, with a force all around us that we can't see or feel, but which pulls the pointer north. That answer didn't satisfy Albert at all. The idea of a hidden force set Albert's mind going around as fast as the pointer on the compass. Where did the magnetism come from, and how did it get into their house? Little did his father know that compass was the start of an amazing quest. To discover the hidden secrets of the universe, Albert's curiosity about the compass came to no surprise to Herman. In fact, he encouraged it, and so did Pauline. The Einstein family had a deep love of learning and a respect for intellect. The first step to gaining knowledge was asking questions. Albert's kind of critical thinking was not appreciated at the school he attended when he turned 6 years old. Albert had never been an obedient student. He once threw a chair at his tutor, who promptly quit and left the house. His new elementary school wasn't any more promising. His parents chose it because it was close enough for Albert to walk to. But as the only Jewish kid in a class of 70 students at the Catholic school, he was an immediate outsider. The other boys teased him, sometimes surprising him on his way home from school with attacks and insults. Prejudice against Jews, which is called anti-Semitism, was on the rise in Germany, and Albert couldn't believe that his classmates thought that all Jewish people were born with the same traits. Albert had had a lot of Jewish people in his family, and each one of them was different from the next. He preferred to be by himself anyway, he reasoned. Things weren't much better for Albert inside the classroom. At that time, school in Germany was very, very strict. Students had to stand and wait for their teacher to arrive and settle into their own seat wait for the teacher to settle in their own seat before they could sit down. If a student fell asleep, although it was practically impossible on those hard wooden benches, he received a painful smack on the wrists or shins with a wooden cane. Other offenses that merited the same punishment were giving the wrong answer too many times, talking out of turn, making a wisecrack, or whispering to a friend. Beyond the teasing and the cane, the worst part of school for Albert was the actual learning. Back then, school was all about memorizing facts and repeating them. It was so bad that Albert called his teachers sergeants because of the way that they drilled the kids in class. He found the drills boring and he wanted to ask questions to learn the material for himself. At home, he was encouraged to ask questions by his parents. So you can imagine how confused Albert was when his teachers found him rude because he asked too many questions. He always got very good grades. He was a genius after all, but his teachers found him infuriating. Albert was smart enough, or perhaps lucky enough, to find wonderful teachers outside of the classroom. He found a kindred spirit in his uncle Jacob, who invented complicated math problems for Albert that he would spend days working on alone in his room until he solved them. Jacob was amazed by how quickly his nephew grasped new and difficult mathematical concepts. In fact, it wouldn't be long before Albert surpassed his uncle's math abilities. He realized that Albert not only could do the problems he gave him, but he also loved to do them. Understanding that Albert thirsted for knowledge, Jacob introduced him to the world of electricity and magnetism. That was the family business. Light and how it traveled became an obsession for his nephew almost instantly. Another huge influence in Albert's young life was Max Talmud, who regularly visited the Einsteins to enjoy home-cooked meals. It was a traditional European Jewish custom to invite a poor student over to eat. Typically, it would have been a religious student, but since the Einsteins weren't a religious family, they kept up the tradition by hosting Max, who was a medical student. Max took an interest in little Albert and gave him a book on geometry, which Albert worked through in no time. Max followed the book with one on higher math, or algebra as it's often called. Albert tore through that as well. Albert, who adored his time alone, was a huge reader, a fact that Max seized upon by giving him many kinds of books, and not just ones about math. Albert loved the way a book opened up new worlds, far beyond school and even home. He read about geology and chemistry and physics, and when he was just 13 years old, Max gave him The Critique of Pure Reason by a German philosopher named Immanuel Kant, which is every bit as hard as it sounds from the title. Albert consumed the book like it was a novel, and it affected the way he thought about human beings for the rest of his life. While the boys at school called him names and his teachers berated him, Albert was far away in his mind. Who cares about teasing when you're considering the philosophical question of whether man really has free will, or imagining what it would be like to travel on a beam of light? Thank you for listening to Chapter 1. Tomorrow I will read you Chapter 2, The Trouble with Being a Genius.